If you watched my video last week on killer first lines, you might now be wondering how to make an excellent ending. Hello Space Cats, I'm Jules. I write and illustrate children's books and I bring you videos on drawing and publishing every week. Like and subscribe if that's something that interests you, because I have got a whole load more things to talk about next year. In the description box below you will find a free guide to publishing, and I think that will help you with some elements of your writing. Let's imagine you've got over that worry of how to start your story. You've sorted out your plot, you know who your characters are, but now, darn it, you can't think of a great ending. The most important thing to remember about writing stories is that your reader wants to be satisfied. They need all loose ends tied up and they want to feel that that ending is justified. However individual and creative you want to be, if the ending of your story makes your reader want to rip out every single page, stuff them up their nose, or throw them in the nearest fire, then you haven't done a very good job. One thing to consider is to have the ending of your story in mind right from the very start, so that you know where you're going. A good creative planning exercise is to think of an ending and then work your way back through planning a story till you get a whole narrative story together. Planning is absolutely key here, so don't just keep your fingers crossed and hope that a great ending is going to land in your lap. Make sure each word is right. Take time to think about the words that you're using and make them work for you. Try finding different ways of coming up with the same idea or the same sentence. And don't just settle for an okay finish, you want it to be brilliant. Young picture book readers need a resolution to the story. They do not like cliffhangers or to be left with loads of unanswered questions. They're just too young to work out nuances or work out difficult concepts for themselves. For the under sixes, be definitive and tie up all loose ends. And make sure that your main character takes part in the ending. After all, your reader has built up a relationship with this protagonist and they want them to be there for the final hurdle. Here are some good examples of great endings that I've just pulled off of my bookshelf. Pippi Longstocking by Astrid Lindgren. My newest recruit to the bookshelf, Otto Blotto Bird Spotter by Graham Carter. And one of my favourite all-time books is by Oliver Jeffers, The Incredible Book-Eating Boy. And this one is different because it's not the illustrations, it's not the writing that's different, it's the design. For younger children, you can apply the rule of surprise, but just in a more age-friendly way. For example, at the end of Little Red and the Very Hungry Lion, we do not expect the lion to want to eat Daddy. We see Little Red here at her most commanding and powerful. For older readers, that's age 7 and over, you could think about one of these sorts of endings. A twist in the tale is where the reader thinks that they know what is going to happen in the end, but at the last minute it all changes. For example, the evil headteacher turns out to be the person who rescues them all. The enigma ending is too ambiguous for younger readers, but perhaps for older ones it's great. It's where they're left with a few questions and they can make up their own minds about how the ending feels to them or what it means. For example, perhaps in your story the bomb has been defused, but at the last moment the police get a phone call saying there's a second bomb and it's even bigger. The good old cliffhanger. Now this is a great way to tempt your readers to read your second book, but the caveat here is you need to be sure that you are going to write that second book. So how can you go about putting this into practice? With repetition you can either repeat words, phrases or structure just to bring that back from the beginning to the end again, making it sort of cyclical. Ask a question, either one that you actually want an answer to or a rhetorical one. The first sort of question is good for younger readers because that means they can then discuss things with the person that's reading the book with them. For older readers, a rhetorical question means that they can go away and sort of ponder what the story meant to them. Humour. Perhaps something funny could happen at the end, maybe in the text, the illustration, or even in the design. If you decide to do a funny illustration, then don't forget to write that into your stage directions for your layouts. If you started your story with the time of day, then maybe you could end it with that as well. It could be the same time. Perhaps it's 7 o'clock again and the alarm's just gone off. Your character is waking up under the same circumstances, but now we know what the previous 24 hours has brought them. With dialogue, perhaps you're having a conversation between two people. Does one person say something really relevant? Does it tie up lots of loose ends? One thing that can be really useful and important in children's stories is to refer back to something that you started with. For example, perhaps at the beginning your protagonist is eating a bowl of cornflakes when the thing happens that starts your story. So perhaps at the end you could have that same character throwing cornflakes into the bin saying, "I am never eating cornflakes again." Here are 2 things to avoid at all costs. It was all a dream. Whatever the catastrophe or the conflict, your protagonist wakes up and the journey that you have just been on them did not happen. What a waste of time. It's very cliched and very unsatisfactory. The disconnected ending is where something completely irrelevant happens. Say for example, your secret agent is tracking the baddie across the world, and then at the end you get bored and fed up with writing the story, so you write in that they just decide to give it all up and go and become a professional golf player for the rest of their lives. Readers hate this sort of thing because it has nothing to do with the story and really is lazy writing. Remember that your reader has given you time and money to listen or read your story, so make sure that it does satisfy them. Emergent writers can sometimes fall down that rabbit hole. You know the one where you want to write something extraordinary and completely unique, but sometimes it's at the detriment of what the reader wants. How about I set you a little challenge? Think of a famous fairy tale or story that you know well and plan a completely different ending using one of the structures that I have given you today. Now try writing that ending and see how it goes. If you'd like further artist tutorials, I have a variety of short courses that will help you. There are real-time sessions looking at painting, drawing and marker pens, among others. And if you're keen on producing your own book, there is a more in-depth course on what you need to know about self-publishing a book with illustrations. And that covers making key decisions, how to make layouts and dummy books, rhythm and pacing, as well as several tutorials on illustrating your book, and a look at the tech. You can either hop over to my website or join me on Patreon for more information. Go on, give it a go! Next week I will be filming my plan with me for December. Until then, I'm going to track down as many trick endings and disconnected endings as I can possibly find and discombobulate them. I'll see you next time. Nanu nanu!